Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horror review. Well, I kind of cheated with this one. I've watched it before, but it's been a couple of years since it came out. But it had to be done. It popped up in the feed, and I'm like, yes, we got to get this happening because it was first released in 2017, and then it kind of vanished for a bit. You couldn't find it anywhere. So thankfully, it's popped up again. So if you haven't read the title, etc., it's Sadako versus Kayako, which for those that aren't familiar, it's the Grudge, the Ring versus the Grudge. So yeah. So hey, Chris. Yep. So Sadako is the long-haired girl, the demon from the Ring series, and Kayako. That's the thing, because the Grudge is meant to be a family, three, husband, wife, young boy, and a cat. Believe it or not. But I think just I think more the Japanese lore. Kayako's the demon. I should do more Japanese stuff because their storytelling is amazing. Like the Shimagazi, the demons. If you watch Death, not the god awful movie, live action movie adaptation, but the actual anime series. I'll just put the brakes in that before anyone gets really annoyed with me and watches that one. Goes, Colin, why do I waste an hour and a half of my life? Because that movie is awful. But the actual anime series is brilliant. But Japanese lore in terms of demons and angels and entities is actually really good. Thankfully, because of anime, we've got the experience of more. This is what I'm saying. We need more lore. Everyone talks about how, we need to come together, we need to understand each other, blah, 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 blah. And then they do it in the completely wrong way by rubbing everybody up, winding everybody up, because that works. Politics isn't going to do it. Religion isn't going to do it. That does the exact opposite. But one thing that brings people together is storytelling, and good storytelling. That's how if you don't know someone or don't know a culture, and somebody shared a story with you from their culture, and you share one with them, there is a bond. That's why cultures that have good lore and good storytelling have been able to integrate better because of something to share. It's a form of trade if you think about it. Here's a piece of me, there's a piece of me, when it's good and it's enjoyable, people all of a sudden find out they're more in common than don't. Anyway, that's the philosophical section out of the way. But we're talking about Japanese movies, so there's a philosophical aspect to it all anyway. So just getting in character. Should have worn a gi. The Grudge, the Japanese version, is great. And I forget what it is, because Ring's obviously Ringu. I forget what it says. The Japanese version of The Grudge, great. The Western remake with what's her face in it is a snorefest. I didn't enjoy that at all, and there's people swear by it, but yeah, I didn't enjoy the Western remake of The Grudge. Just fell flat. Now, this movie, just a wee bit of fun. This was originally announced as an April Fool's prank, and I think what happened was it was a clever marketing ploy. It was arranged, was maybe an April Fool's prank. Maybe they tried to get it funded, so they put that forward, and maybe the studio seeing the reaction, and everyone's like, yeah, money. Even though a lot of people quite aware that it was April Fool thing, maybe secured the funding for the budget for the movie. Who knows? But it did come out. Now, it says it came out to mixed reviews. So let's put that in context here. What are you expecting from a movie like this? Now, The Grudge and The Ring are heavy movies. Let's be honest, they're not lighthearted fun in that aspect. You think about Freddy versus Jason, it's the most comparable thing. At the start off, obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street, serious horror movie. Friday the 13th, serious horror movie. But then they both embraced the comedy. They both progressed because they knew they couldn't keep doing the same thing. So they progressed to the comedy element and having fun with the slasher series. So that's how they've been able to be the move of the times in the audience. They knew the right time. Like part 3 is when it went full comedy wisecracking for Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it was about part 5. Friday the 13th took a bit longer because obviously the first is a classic and it worked as a standalone movie. 2, 3, and 4 took a minute to find their feet because they're trying to do something with this Jason character. Which didn't strictly go to lore, but then when it got to part 5, they started to understand, all right, okay, people will suspend disbelief if they realize they're just in for a bit of fun. So something like this, it's not going to be a serious, scary movie. Let's be honest. We understand. I'm guilty. I'm a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. Freddy all the way. A thing you should watch though, if you haven't. This is how brilliant the marketing was for Freddy versus Jason. They actually did a weigh-in as if it was a boxing match. Look it up on YouTube. The Freddy versus Jason weigh-in. That is hilarious. And it just goes to show that they were fully in your mind that this is a bit of fun. There's no way it's gonna, you can do it. So when you have that in your mind, and that came out in 2008, I think. So you're going to get the same for this. So I think manage your expectations before getting the movie, I guess. It's not going to be super serious. But the manage to pull it off. It's the only way the Japanese can do, is take something super serious and dark, but make it comedic. Now, how do we set this up? We'll start off with, and I honestly think that this director's biased towards Sadako. Honestly do. But we'll start off, obviously, it's the Ring scenario. Now, there's a few changes to the lore, but we'll get that. But it starts off, there's like a social worker calling them one of her elderly patients, said they haven't seen her for a while, knocks the door, says it's open, goes into the house. And then we find this elderly lady, she's like strangled herself with, she looks as if she's strangled herself with a power cord. This is where the lore gets a wee bit twisted, because when the social worker's in the house, the videotape turns on by itself and starts playing the video from the Ring. And this is where it's clever, changes up a bit. The first showing of the video is the original, you start seeing it and then it comes out. Obviously that's against the lore because you have to be given the tape, you have to play it yourself, you have to voluntarily curse yourself. So I can see where the criticism is for this movie, but because it's a Monster Mash versus, I think we can kind of let go of that. But it turns out that she offs herself 2 days later. So the change, big thing as well, is the change is 7 days to 2 days. So obviously in the Ring, you watch it, and then 7 days, you get a phone call. 7 days later, that's it. That's the shorten it down to 2 days. I think maybe how would they do this? Because obviously the director understands, because of the tone and the language used, the director understands these franchises and the writer, so they know what they're making, know what they're dealing with. I don't think you can make this and not be a horror fan, and definitely a crossover you can't without being a fan of both franchises. And they are very similar in tone, so that's why they work. So what's he doing? Is he shortening it to the 2 days for the sense of urgency? Or is he saying the Sadako's upgraded? I'm thinking the latter because when we get on later, we'll kind of see why. But what happens is then all the old ladies stuff. Now, they do a wee bit of time jumping here, and it's the first sort of part of the movie is a wee bit. You have to sort of hang on because the time scale just seems very, very fast. Because then we jump and we meet two Yuri and Natsumi. They're 2 university students. And they're being given a lecture by I can't get his name. Morishige. I think it's Shinichi Morishige. It's more they refer to him by his surname most of the time. So Morishige, I got. His first name's Shinichi. I'm probably butchering that. Do forgive me. But he's giving a lecture and he's talking about urban myths. And this got me thinking as well, because from last week's conversation, when we're talking about people not getting horror, etc., and the change in culture. Remember the 90s? The 90s was the invention of urban myths. And what I mean is, people were still storytelling. People were still, the Blair Witch Project, The Ring. There was tons of them. You do a quick search and you'll find tons of them. But during the 90s, people were still storytelling. And I don't mean professionally. I mean, this is boring. This is like campfire horror stories, scary stories. This is like they're folklore. And folklore means it comes from people. It's the peasantry. The normal people make up stories to entertain each other. This is part of our fundamental makeup as a human. And we don't do that anymore. We don't tell stories. We don't make them up. What we're doing now is we're just regurgitating what's come before, or we're focusing on other things. But nobody's telling stories now for the fun of it. Even, and maybe I don't see it as much, but because I'm obviously involved a lot with the indie author scene and the lesser extent now the independent film scene, I encounter a lot of people that are doing it, but they're doing it as a business. They're doing it to make a living. Some people doing it as a part-time thing, but most people are doing it for that reason. So I'm still coming across storytellers, and it's just part of me. But I'm starting to realize that outside of that, my little bubble, if that makes sense, nobody's telling stories anymore. And I think somebody should look into it. The problem is, don't trust the universities anymore, because they're too away with whatever they're doing, and they've kind of lost their way a bit. But there has to be a correlation between this misery, angst that everyone's feeling right now and the lack of storytelling. And I think folklore, and this is what really gets me. Sorry for going off on a wee bit of a tangent, but I really enjoyed this. But this movie got me thinking. There's a reason why I really enjoyed it. But the fact that nobody is telling story, it's a way to explain things. It's a way to give warnings. It's a way to bring people together. And when you remove that aspect, that's a sign of a culture. And maybe we'll put it under Western culture, but then we'll see other cultures that don't storytell. It's not part of their fabric. And they're very angry and very, very insular and very aggressive towards outsiders. And like I said right at the beginning, there's something about sharing, creating folklore, creating stories, and knowing that fable came from your area and sharing that with someone. That's what helped us get to this point, and now I see us stagnating and actually going in reverse. And I'm really starting to wonder if that's part of it. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, by the way. Obviously, I'll dive back into the story here, but definitely interested to hear your thoughts. Look at Japan, right? Let's look at that as an example. Look at the thriving anime scene. Look at their, they're still taking risks in terms of making up new stories, and some succeed, some fail. Anime isn't their only form of expression. I know it's become well known, but this sort of stuff has, been out since the dawn of time. They've based it loosely off their own folklore, and then they give it an upgrade, and they tell other stories, and then they use tales from the 90s. So there's not stagnating, if that makes sense. There's a lot of forward thinking, and there's a vibrancy, the storytelling, and look how well our culture's doing. There's got to be something in that. We're looking for solutions to the world's problems, and we want somebody to fix this for us. But how about start from the basics? How you are as a person, generate your own happiness, stretch your imagination. Our imagination is the most precious thing we have. It's what sets us apart from everything else. Even though we're just animals like any other, but our imagination is what's made us, just a different beast altogether, and that is a precious thing to just give up. But anyway, so we'll go back, we'll meet the students. They're Matsugi's giving his lecture, and he's talking about urban myths. It might have been the translation. By the way, I watched this with subtitles, not dubbed. But it was a short lecture. But he finds himself saying he believes that the cursed videotape one is actually true. And then finally he's actually looking for Sadako. And then he finishes off his lecture going, oh, by the way, I have a new book out, buy my book. Could you picture me finishing off every stream? I just think that's very pretentious. Could you picture me finishing off every stream with, here, buy my thing? God, I'd be even more annoying than I am now. But there you go. So he finished that off. So he's a bit of an interesting character anyway. Natsumi has a copy of her. Is it her parents' wedding video on VHS, and she wants her friend to convert it to DVD. So they have to go and she's a tech whiz, the other one isn't. But they have to go to like an old a second-hand store that reconditions equipment to basically get a VHS player. This is how it all ties together, because, and that's where I'm saying the timelines of it squarely, because they buy the VHS player that used to belong to the woman who we met, at the start. So to me, that's a very quick turnaround. So the kind of leave you thinking it's happening like day after next very quickly, but it's obviously a bit of time's gone past, but you don't get a hint of that. So the see one going for cheap to buy it, go back to the house to set it up. They realize there's a videotape still on it. It's the cursed one. Is it Yuri watches it? No, Natsumi watches it. They both go to watch it, right? But Natsumi watches it, but Yuri's sitting completely distracted playing on her phone. So technically she doesn't watch it, if that makes sense, even though she's in the same room. That happens, and this is where it changes, because the second time watching, it's not the well and the symbols. It's an apartment block, like an old derelict apartment block, and then it's showing all that stuff, and then Sadako opening the door. So with that, it's kind of hinted, I think, that it's upgraded. it's moved from the well. Something's happened that it's not actually bound by its original constraints. If we think back to the original Ring, that would make sense, because do you remember they tried to... they did call the wee girl Sadako, but do you remember they tried to solve the mystery by actually finding Sadako's body? And they thought by finding her in the well and then freeing her would break the curse, but it turned out actually Sadako's a demon, and by doing that, they actually freed her, where the well kept her contained and the curse localized. So anyway, we'll see this, and then Sadako appears in the room, and Natsumi sees her, even though she wasn't. She's like, "Oh, what's that?" And disappears. It's after the phone rings. Natsumi picks it up. Sorry, Natsumi picks up the phone. She's the one that gets cursed. I'm going to switch these two around because I'm terrible with names. But yeah, Natsumi gets cursed. She gets a phone call. She picks it up, but Yuri sees Sadako appear, and she's like, and then, realize that she's been cursed. They then they go to give the tape back. So they go back to the store, and it's like, oh, we found this tape in the player. And then that's when we find out that it was bought from a house where the woman, killed herself with an electric cord. That must take some bloody doing. You have to be really keen to do that. So you kind of know something's not quite right there. Then we find out the social workers done the same thing or similar. And then the girl in the shop that sold him the video recorder goes out the back into the warehouse and jumps off like a high thing just before they come back, because the tape's up in a set of floors, and so they're jumping with this timeline, I think, in between, but you don't get a sense of that in the movie. So that would be my criticism. You almost think this is happening instantaneously, but obviously there's a couple of days happening, in between each one. You just don't get a sense of it in the first part, which is a bit of a, you kind of get past it, I think, but still, think of the pace in this movie. They could have maybe paced out the first part a wee bit more. Not much, but just enough to give you a sense of time, because you do lose it a bit. So they then realize that they've been cursed, and they go to Morishige, flipping his name. They go to Morishige. He's like, oh yeah, what else? One of the lines. She's like, oh, this happened yesterday. I'm going to die tomorrow. Blah blah blah. After telling the whole story, and one of the favorite lines is like, you might die tomorrow, you might not. Let's find out. I'll watch a video too. He's off his nut. He's completely bonkers. It turns out he's completely obsessed with Sadako wanting to see the demon, and he shoos him out of his office. He puts the video in, and he's just going to the video the whole time. Sadako, is that you? Is that you? Hello? Sadako, it's me. I'm here. I've been looking for you. Giving all this while he's watching the thing. And then he comes out after the curse, goes, I'm cursed too. That, as if it's the greatest thing in the planet. Guy's mad. I love him. He's great. Great character. And he's like, not bothered, but they kept doing it wrong. So you're meant to, how is it you break the curse? In the original one, you're meant to break the curse by making a copy of the tape. That was how the original curse was broken, and then handing it off to someone else, and then you hand off the curse. They didn't do this, so they don't break the curse. So Natsumi's still cursed, and now Morishige is as well. So this is where the sort of craziness. Then we jump to another girl, and it goes to school. So we've got Suzuka. She's a schoolgirl. She's heading home from school, and she sees a wee boy, and they're outside a house. So this is getting into the Grudge. You'll kind of figure that out anyway, because it's even if you haven't seen both or you haven't seen either, you sort of see the slight change in focus, and you know the title of the movie, so you know it's moving into the Grudge part now. So we're getting an introduction of obviously both demons, which, in fairness, this is what they do quite well. This, if you've never seen The Grudge in the Ring, you can watch this movie. That's one thing I'll say about it, because it explains it so well that you don't need to see either of the two other movies. And this is where so Suzuki lives across the road from the house, been abandoned for years, and this is where Kayako lives, the Grudge. So she's heading home from school, I think, or to school. She's heading to school because she doesn't talk to her parents about it until later on. So she's heading to school, sees a wee boy, and then 3 other boys turn up, and they're like, "We've arrived. We've got his present or something." And she's like, "Oh, okay," because the wee lad was looking a bit weird, a bit nervous. So it turns out these are the 3 school bullies. They've made him wait there. Like, that must be awful. Imagine bullies making you turn up to actually get bullied. That's mental. Very sad as well, but that's what it is. The basically made him turn up, and then what they say, "Here's your present," a load of rocks, and they put them into his backpack, and they deliberately drop one and make him apologize for them dropping one and then filling up his backpack with it, which, fairness for bullying's not the worst, but the reason is he's basically told he has to go into the house, count to 1,000, and obviously the rocks are to make him not run as fast. And then that's it. They'll let him go, not do anything to him. So he goes in, obviously, and counters Kayako. And that's a good one thing they did with. I think they got Kayako more accurate than Sadako, because they stuck true with the character. The only thing they're missing is obviously the father and the cat, like the physical manifestation. Although a cat, like a live cat, seems to run about prior. Oh, so chat's filling up tonight. Evening. Good to see you, man. How many available poltergeists? Do you want that? Cool. Looking forward to that there. I'm actually looking forward to Pillow Party Massacre, if I'm honest. I'm sure it's going to be wonderfully daft. And I've reviewed all 3 movies, by the way, so you can get my take on that. It's like, yay! Oh. In that order. But yeah, so when we see what happens, obviously the wee boy, he goes in, encounters, gets... That's one thing I like about Japanese movies. They're not afraid of what would be taboos over here in the West. So just because a young boy, nah, you're not safe. Does that mean he gets taken apart, spared or anything that would with any other horror movie? No. So the wee boy appears, he's mewling like a cat, and they got the sound so accurate with so in sync with the original series. It's brilliant. So what happens is the wee boy comes, and then bit sneaky this time. He comes to him as if he's a friend. So he lands on his shoulder and he does a meow, but somehow he convinces the wee boy to lure the other 3 into the house. So he takes one of the rocks and he, griff throw, bops. Everybody deserves it, but he takes one of the rocks out of the pack and he lobs it and catches the other wee guy straight in the noggin. And then that sets him off. They obviously chase him into the house. And this is where, this is pure evil. Pure evil. But you gotta love it because that what else do you expect a demon to be? Demons are my favorite monster because they revel in what they are, where nearly every other creature is some tragic case or a curse passed on or an infection or something, but demons, they don't mess about. So what happens is obviously boys are in the house, and then Kayako starts taking care of them. The wee lad's hiding in the cupboard, and he's under the impression that he's completely safe. And that's I think this is the most twisted scene in a horror movie I've seen in a while in terms of setup. Now it's not gory. That's what I mean. Horror doesn't need to be gory. You just have to have that sense and that feeling. And when you have it, then you're bought in. So he's sitting there, he thinks this demon's his friend. And then he sees the demon go around taking care of the other wee lads, and then he gets to the last one. And then you see the other set of hands come from behind in the cupboard, as obviously the other part of Kayako, the adult part, grabs him. So he wasn't safe either. So there you go. Brilliant. It was a brilliant setup. And then that's the introduction to Kayako. Now, where Suzuka comes into it is she's being called by the house. Now, that's a bit of a break from the lore because if I remember from the original, I haven't seen the original Grudge in a while. We did review Ringo and the Ring. We did a horrific remake review freaking ages ago, about a year and a half ago, I think. Just comparing the two and enjoyed it, but I haven't done the Grudge because I'm not a fan of the Western remake, so I'll be biased anyway. Just didn't enjoy it. But I don't believe you get called to by the house. It's just circumstances. You happen to be stupid enough to go into the haunted house. Because rules of horror, don't go into the haunted horror house that loads of people have been killed in and nobody can sell and move on. You just don't do it. You just go, oh, I know. Anyone has gone in that house before something bad's befallen them. I'm going to stay overnight. Yay. Yeah. Silly people. I'm so glad we have so many stupid people in horror movies. Like, that's where else would we get our cannon fodder from? So we'll go back then to Kishimi, is it? Natsumi, sorry. God. What's her surname? Yuri, isn't it Yuri? But anyway. Yeah, Horrorously, yeah, sure. We'll carry on a wee bit because Suzuka comes back and they hear about the missing 4 boys, and she says to her parents, "Oh, I think there might have been 4 boys missing. I seen them exact same 4 boys you're talking about outside that house." What is it? This is where it gets. Oh God, I can't remember now. Do we jump back to we jump back to Natsumi and Yuri, and they start because Morishige starts a plan to see an exorcist, realizing that they're cursed, and they want to get it out of her first. And then this whole scene, and this is where it completely departs because in the Ring, I think the Ring series, because is there 2 or 3 of them? There's definitely 2, and then there's the one in the airplane, which was that the Japanese version or the Western? God, it's been ages. I'm not a big, obviously, you know me, I'm not a big fan of sequels, so I don't tend to watch all the follow-ups, and this is a really good, series, but I don't think we've seen them try to spiritually deal with the demon. Like, people have tried to find ways around it and do research and all, the usual trope, but actually head-to-head fighting. So they go to this priestess, she starts a ritual, she has her 2 assistants, and then the bank at Sumi. They take her into the temple, and then they start the ritual of exorcism. And while she's doing that, then Sadako appears and wipes out all three of them. And then what we find out is that, which is a bit I can't get my head around, anyone that interferes with the curse, and that includes trying to kill themselves, meets Sadako's wrath. So I can understand the priest not trying to interfere with the curse and why Sadako would appear and deal with them. But then after that, Yuri, Matsumi just loses it with Yuri. So Yuri's like, look, I'm sorry, I'll give it to me, I'll watch the tape. But then it turns out that Yuri then loses it. She goes to kill herself. But because she does it before the time, Sadako appears and deals with her for not enacting the curse. That was about it. Didn't get my head around. Because you'd think that would, just the act of them down would be enough. But essentially Yuri gets cursed now as well. After the scene at the temple, there's somebody else, like a super exorcist, they decide to call. Who is it? God, I forget his name now. Toshio. No, Kaizo. Sorry, Kaizo. Who's Toshio? Oh, is Toshio the mother figure? And Kayako's the wee boy. I think that's the way it works. But yeah, when I have a super exorcist, he appears. He's got a wee blind girl with him, and she's like, she can't see in the real world, but you can see in the metaphysical. So we'll see a wee bit like Matrix type stuff. Blinded the real world, but can see the machine world. She can see the spirit world. Acts older than her years, sort of thing. Wise beyond her years type scenario, which is quite cool. The two of them play off together. He reminded me of God, it was a Kip out of Cowboy Bebop. He kind of has that look about him. But yeah, he's in, it's all cool, and sets up things, looks at, and he's called in to see the two girls, but at the same time they're made aware of the presence that the schoolgirl Sadako kind of brushes past them or something, and then they get warned, attuned to the fact that there's another curse in the area, because they'll come up with the idea of, obviously, well, to remove a curse, get two demons to fight each other and cancel the curse out. So then they go, that's what it is, to go looking, are there any other urban legends in the local area? Then they find the Grudge House. And then they come across Suzuka. Now, what happens then is Suzuka, it jumps back to Suzuka again. She takes her parents to the house because she's convinced the wee boy's in there. She goes in and they wait at the door. She sees a schoolboy again, but he's like a spirit. And, that kind of ensues. And then they try to get her, but her parents go in to try and save her. And then they get taken out instead. And Suzuki gets dragged out of the house by Toshio, because they had kind of been keyed up that this was important to see them going in. So we'll get the next morning. It's basically only Yuri and Suzuka then left alive. Everyone else around him's been taken out. Toshio then explains that what they're going to have to do is basically get cursed twice. Not just both the curse they have, but get each other's curses. And that'll prompt the demons in, when they come to claim them, to fight over who wins and then take each other out. I don't think they factored in that there might be a winner. But that's for fun. So this is cool. They they've got the setup. Then we've got the story leading into what happens. And apart from, like I said, those time jumps at the beginning, this all melds together quite well. It wasn't forced. It worked. Both curses are acting independently anyway, going on. Just by chance, they happen to be in the same area. And it's lending the fact that there's tons of these. By the lecture Morishima gave about urban legends, that these are, all over. And like I said, it's a modern day storytelling, the modern day folklore, which seems to have stopped in the 90s, early 2000s. And we're in this kind of slump. Tell ghost stories, people. That's how we save the planet. Tell ghost stories. That's how we come together. Tell ghost stories again. Do it. But yeah, we get set up for the confrontation. So Toshio starts. He discovered a well. He opens it up. He starts creating a ritual around it, making a sort of like a ghost trap, so to speak, like a Japanese version of the Ghostbusters ghost trap, but it's a well. The two girls then go in with. This is 2017. They should have had. Why didn't they have a portable DVD player? What I don't get is they made a whole big thing of dragging a big TV into the house, and they've got modern mobile phones. So why didn't they have like the wee flip up? Because the house could have quite easily cut the power supply, so it couldn't be watched. Surely it would have sensed the fact there's another entity, but who am I? I thought that would have been better actually, just standing on the table and playing the thing on a wee portable DVD player. But no, instead they come in, they've got the TV, and they're flipping carrying a big trolley up the stairs, making a whole thing of it. They set it up. So by Natsumi entering the house, she's automatically catching Nayako's curse, the grudge, and then Suzuka starts playing the videotape, the DVD in this case. So then she's then taking Sadako's curse. So sure enough, comes to fruition. Nayako it was released in 2017. So it's modern, and they're talking as if it's the 90s. And like I said, they're using modern mobile phones, but then they're mixing it with the old technology, and they had to go looking in a spiceless store to get the VHS player. And the fact that I suppose converting to DVD still a thing today, especially old media, makes sense. It's the more robust form anyway. It's a weird. Do you know what? It works in a sense because have you noticed that when a movie set specifically in a time zone, it gets very dated? So by doing this and using the old and new technology, it kind of puts you in that weird time zone. So you're almost out of time while watching this movie. So you won't really. Doesn't matter what comes out in the future. This one it's got legs on it because it does that. Where if you see something that was set in the 90s, just using 90s technology, you're kind of like, oh, that wouldn't work today. But the fact that they're showing this old technology and then they've got new technology. And another thing, oh god, I forgot to mention that. Natsumi, when she loses her mind, decides, oh, I know, because I burned this VHS on the DVD, I'm going to upload Sadako's curse onto the internet. So that speeds things up again. Because, yeah, that's clever. So even when she tried to take it down, has a regret. It's already been downloaded thousands of times. That's all it takes is a few seconds, something to be up now, and boom, it's out there. By the way, if you're doing that with these videos, could you at least hit the like button and share it around as well? You know what I mean? Cheers. Thanks very much. Much appreciated. Yeah. So yeah, it works because you're taking out of time. Like I said, it's good setup. Makes us movie's got legs on it, so go over. But then they set up the house. Nayako's coming to claim the victim just as the movie's video is ending and Sadako appears. So you can tell what happens next. Ding ding, round one, fight. And sure enough, they start digging it out. What they didn't expect though, and this is where this movie kind of goes a bit bonkers, which was fun. And it's anyone who's watched anime knows what happens. Yes, they're merging into a higher level demon. Yeah, water formation, 3rd level. You know, that's what it turns into. So they start fighting, and then, of course, the demons merge. And then, essentially, what it is, one of the girls, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Oh, let's get one of my viewers off. That's yeah. So they start to merge. So it's like, oh no, someone has to give their life to lure the demon into the trap, and Natsumi still feeling guilty about Yuri, and doesn't want to obviously subject a young girl who has her whole life in front of her, even though she's only a couple of years older. She's like, I'll do it. She stands up on the edge of the well, jumps in. Just as she jumps in, the demon appears. But it's actually a trick, sort of, because Toshio tries to do something, doesn't work, and obviously the demon goes into the trap. Then it kind of ends weird, because they set the trap, blah blah blah, and then next thing we know, Sadako's appeared again, and then just cuts off. Just kind of does a bit of a weird ending, so it's kind of hinting that Sadako won the fight and continues on despite all going on. So yeah, that was a really cool. It was a really cool movie. Yeah, it just kind of cuts off, and you don't really know. There's a post-credit scene. We see another. The version of the videotape is upgraded again. It's somewhere else now, and we've now got a Sadakaya sort of, combined demon. So she's still Sadako, but she's moving with the jointed movements of Nayako. So we've got this new thing, and then that's it. Cool. I don't know if a sequel for this Sadakaya, I don't know if a sequel for this would work. I think this is just one of these movies that it's fun to do, fun to bring the universes together. You don't need to have watched, honestly, you do not need to have watched The Ring and the Grudge to enjoy this movie. You can watch it on its own right. I can see, like I said, a wee bit of the whole time jumping at the beginning was a bit off-putting, but there's plenty going on in this plot anyway, so you can forgive it. The way they bring the characters in, brilliantly done. So there's none of those gaping plot holes where, we need to bring a new character in. How do we do it? No, there's actually a linear progression. And then how they bring the two together, once again, makes sense. How many movies do you see fail in that aspect alone miserably? That's how the characters get there, what's their motivation, what brings them together. And a lot of movie makers today just skip all that. Fight. And yes, the fight and the backfiring and all that kind of stuff worked well. It's a franchise, it's two franchises. The humans were never going to win. Wouldn't you? Even if you had a bit of hope, it wasn't going to happen. And yes, another thing as well, we've got likable characters. So even though Morishima was a weird, he wasn't unlikable. He was an obsessed man, but you felt sorry when he went. Every character come in this was not, apart from 3 bullies, you didn't care about them, but the other wee lad you did. No, and the reason why is because in the UK we have got screwed over. So Universal very cleverly decided to sell K1, their European distribution company, the Lionsgate, So anything that's Universal now under that banner, we're not going to see. It's on hold. All not just the Voyage, Last Voyage of the Demeter, but all movies by Universal, we're not going to see now indefinitely. Like, we have been royally humped because of stupid executives. I'm actually going to I've saved the article about it, and I'm going to talk about it at the end of the month with Cameron. I'm quite annoyed because I wanted to see that. Yeah, I had a few doubts about it because I don't understand how they're going to drag out like a 3-page scene in a 100-page book. Yet, I was interested to see how it turned up, and I'm also going to fit in with our Dracula. You know, we did the whole coverage of the Dracula in film. So I was looking forward to see this one coming up because that was obviously featuring Dracula himself. Yeah, I'm annoyed. But this has happened a lot. There's a lot of screwing about with releases. And it's, you look at reviews, I'm not able to do some reviews until like months after the original feature comes out. And that's because I'm not sailing high seas. If it was to like do that, yeah, I could probably see all the movies I wanted, but I don't agree with that. And even if I'm annoyed with Hollywood and don't care about them, I'm not going to steal jobs off people by not supporting the works. And that's the same as whether it's a main feature or independent. You know what I mean? If the opportunities are, I'm purchasing the works, even as they're rented. I'm sure, in fact, independent viewers are probably more susceptible, I think, than others. But if you're going to, even to critique something, don't watch something that you're going to like buy it legally, because it's not just the director, the movie stars, blah blah blah. It's all the people that are brought in, props, you know, hotels, the local economies of where they're shot. I mean, all those places are benefit from movies being made. So that's why I don't agree with piracy. I think it's a bit shitty. Oh, HORRORific. It might, but not for a while. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to cover physical media as well. That might be under a separate distribution. But K1 was the Universal's movie distributor for Europe and UK, and yeah, they just sold it to Lionsgate, like their competitor. Here, we don't want to make money. Oh, by the way, in the description of each of the videos, if you fancy supporting us, there's an affiliate link for HORRORific. If you fancy signing up to it, we get a wee bit of a few loose change if you do sign up. So it all helps to support the channel. In the end, things, I guess, stuff all needs to be paid for. Much appreciated if you do. If not, once again, that's fine as well. You know what I mean? It's just there. It's something to feel so inclined. Always appreciated. But yeah, I'm annoyed about that. Because even though I've missed a chance, everyone's reviewing it. I'm going to miss out. Just wondering if Cameron might do it on this. Actually, might see if he will. Might see if he'll review it on this channel. Get him to do it, because I'm not going to be able to. But there you go. This movie, a lot of fun. Still holds up even after a couple of watches. It's one you can just stick on, have a bit of a laugh with. I like the way they took it, and it's proper storytelling. So always appreciate that. The effects in that were what they needed to do. Nothing over the top. So there you go. Check it out. If you've watched this, obviously, I know Calvin enjoyed it there, so that's cool. It's not super gory, tense, bit of fun with it. So it's not like an out there horror, but still, it's cool. I mean, there you go. Loads happening still. We're halfway through the month. I've just speaking to Dale earlier, we're going to do Bad Taste soon. Next couple of weeks, so we're going to carry on, like I said, the Peter Jackson. Flip, I'm bringing these teeth in for a horse. Need new dentures. The Peter Jackson series. So we're going to cover Bad Taste soon. We are doing Books of Blood this Sunday. Who have I got coming on? every weekend now to the end of the month, I've got somebody on. Undership. Gene Dolders, yeah, sorry, Gene's coming on this month. He's got a new film coming out, so we're going to talk about it and have a wee chat to him, see what his journey into horror was like. So that should be a good one. And usual, these will be popping up now and again. And tomorrow I'm on Brotherhood of the Dice, so I'll stick the link up for that. Obviously, I've been there carrying on with the Tatters of the King Call of Cthulhu adventure, so that's always fun. And I've got next week. I've actually got to go to bed early next week. I'm not doing Dragonlance. That'll be the following week. But there you go. So keep up to date with the channel, do the typey clicky things, and until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.